He needs his vote polled immediately. And I'll say, I don't care. The leader, the boss. Where is Josh Heupel? The largest humans he can find. You got Miami and Georgia and Florida State and Tennessee and Texas A&M. Kirby wants you. LSU and Ole Miss. Not even a football player, but he's 6'10", 334. Kirby said, sign me up. That's all they've got to offer when it comes to a defensive player. What could they possibly say other than, how down do you have to be for a win? Let us pay you. All they got to be is enormous. What could they possibly say? Knock the team out west. Oh, well. He'll take them if they're lowly rated, too. I'm not some guy who's some Big Ten homer. Behind that, I will never find it acceptable. I want to see it, man, because they've got nothing else to go on. And welcome to Juck on a Friday. Got me some Diet Canada Dry. We're ready to roll. I was just looking at Rose Bowl tickets. Now, I know that's a bit presumptuous of me, but here's my thought. If Ohio State wins the game against Tennessee and they punch the ticket to the Rose Bowl, the matchup, Ohio State, Oregon, those prices are going to go through the roof, right? But if Tennessee wins and Tennessee goes to the Rose Bowl, they've never been to the Rose Bowl. If I'm not mistaken, I can't think of a time that they would have been to the Rose Bowl. So it's their first playoff. They come to Columbus, win in this scenario, right? Just talking about this scenario. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think the Buckeyes are going to win that game. Matter of fact, somebody used to ask me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident am I? And I am 65% confident. I've come to that number. Where are you guys at? I'm at 65. So if Tennessee ends up going out to the game, those ticket prices are also going to skyrocket. Here's what we're talking about. The get-in price is about $350. Like $450 gets you a pretty nice seat. So me, the wife, less than $1,000 for the tickets. I think we do the whole thing probably $3,000. $3,000 to see the Buckeyes in the Rose Bowl against Oregon. Only this time a playoff chance on the line. Like you're advancing, heading to Dallas would be the next round. Or do you roll the dice even further and try to go see Dallas in hopes of a Ohio State-Texas matchup? I don't know what way to go, but I think that after the show, I'm just going to buy the Rose Bowl tickets. That's what I'm thinking. Bill Belichick, this news has just taken the college football world by storm. I did not think it would be quite so big, but there's like 7 different breakdowns on every single one of my news sites about Bill Belichick. One of them that I found interesting was he's coming in making T6 money. So out of the top 10 coaches by salary, you've got Kirby at number 1, $13 million. Dabo at number 2, more news on him later, at number 11. Steve Sarkisian at $10.6 million. Lincoln Riley, $10.04. Ryan Day, $10.02. Bill Belichick tied 6 at $10 million even with Mike Norvell of Florida State, Mr. 2-10, Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. He was making 4.3 at Washington, gets a raise up to $10 million to come to Alabama. Brian Kelly, 9.975. This guy, 25,000 short of $10 million. I wonder why that is. Why did they stop there? There's got to be something to that. And then Kentucky's Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops, the winningest coach in program history, but still, having Mark Stoops as a top 10 paid head coach, that's pretty steep at Kentucky, don't you think? But of those 10 coaches, there's one new head coach. So let's just say 9. Out of those 9 coaches, 4 of them are in the playoffs. Georgia and Kirby, Clemson and Dabo, Ryan Day and Ohio State, Steve Sarkisian and Texas. So good on them. Now, I did see some argument today, the Ryan Day argument. It doesn't stop, but somebody said, how's it working out for Bama? As if to say Kalen DeBoer has been a failure. And I'm just thinking, like, is that what people really think? Do you guys think Kalen DeBoer has been a failure in year 1? Guy lost 3 games in his first year, changing over an entire offense and an entire defense, was able to retain the most talented roster in football, missed the playoffs by 1 spot, and he landed a top 3 class in his very first recruiting cycle. I think that qualifies as a pretty big success. I consider it a success. I don't think for a second that that's not been a success. You guys let me know. But Ohio State does also rank number 1 in assistant coaching salary pool. 11.43 million getting paid to the Ohio State assistant coaches. Georgia is second at 10.3. Clemson is third. And that surprises me that Clemson is that high in both Dabo's salary and the assistant salary pool. But Jim Knowles at 2.2 million, Chip at 2 million, Hartline at 1.6, LJ at 1.4, and Tim Walton at 1.4 are the 5 highest paid assistant coaches on the Ohio State staff that make up the biggest assistant payroll pool in the country. Should I add up Kirby and his assistants and Ryan Day and his assistants and see who's the most expensive? Ohio State and Georgia are the 2 most expensive coaching staffs in the country. We'll put it that way. New Ohio State athletic director Ross Bjork is doing a pre-playoff kind of media circuit. He was on Channel 10. He was on 97.1. He was on a couple of podcasts. And he's basically being asked the same questions and given the same answers. And his general feel with, the questions, is Ryan Day going to be back next year? Yes. Is he going to be back no matter what happens in the playoffs? Absolutely. He said, Coach Day and I have hit it off so well. I've been really impressed. Every time I've talked to him, I've learned something. He's innovative and he recruits at the highest level. There's always going to be tweaks after every year, right? You're always going to be looking to tweak things. You're going to be looking to make adjustments. You're always going to be looking to make improvements. Then he weighed in on the team's natty or bust mentality. And he said, this whole mentality, look, we live it, we sign up for it. But if you get fixated on the results and not the process, you're going to lose. This whole championship mentality, you want that as the goal, but it has to be about the process. So that was the mantra for a lot of the team. They said it publicly. The media asked them every time they were with them in the beginning of the year, in the preseason. National media, local media was nonstop. Is this natty or bust? Is this natty or bust? So I don't know how much they were pushing that or if they were just accommodating what they thought everybody wanted to hear. I don't know. We know that Denzel Burke was pretty loud with it, but I don't know if that was the mantra inside the locker room. If he's trying to say that maybe that was their attitude and that's why they got off track, I suppose if that really was their attitude, you could say that. I don't know that it really was. I think that they are very process oriented in that program right now, week to week. We talked to Dylan. Dylan told us this was the most singularly focused team he's ever seen under Ryan Day. Just week to week, going out to bust ass. That's what Dylan said. And I take his word for it. But at any rate, Ross Bjork said that Ryan Day totally gets it, loves being a Buckeye, and we're going to support him at the highest level. But here's the thing. The reason that we said something after the game, that he came out and said that statement after the Michigan game, is because he said, we're still breathing. We're still alive. The season's not over. And it's not. And he needs to be the voice of calm right now. He needs to project strength and confidence. That's what a leader does, especially in uncertain times. And he's doing that. So kudos to him. He's also got half the fan base and boosters feeling like this Cadillac roster and the handpicked most expensive staff in college football needs to make a run in the playoffs or all confidence in the top man is going to be lost. Doug Lesmerises, I've told you guys before, he was my favorite writer for many years. He's not a writer anymore, but he came out and said after Ross Bjork's statements that Ross Bjork can't say Ohio State needs a playoff run for Day to keep his job. He must be 100% supportive with Tennessee coming to town in 9 days. It doesn't change anything about how this should be viewed. If Ohio State flames out of the playoff, it likely may be obvious to all that a new coach is needed. I get Bjork saying this, but he couldn't say anything else. So I think he pretty much summed up what the majority of folks are feeling at this point. However, I feel like this is a very challenging matchup with Tennessee. I don't want to slough them off at all. But this is a game the Bucks got to have, and I think they're going to win the game. I don't think the weather favors them. I think if anything, it's a wash. We saw the pictures from Tennessee with the snow on the ground the other day. I don't know if you guys saw the picture with that they took the team took as if to show like, look, we're practicing in the snow. It was actually like it was pretty well timed that they had snow there and they were out there on the practice field. I'll try to put that up.
I think guys let the cold get to them. Because, I'm a Florida guy. I don't like the cold,
but they're a great running team. They're a powerful team. They're powerful on the lines of scrimmage. And Ohio State didn't do so well playing like that against Michigan in their last game. So they're definitely going to be trying to throw the ball a little bit more. And it's not to say you can't in the colder weather. It is a little more difficult, but we'll see. Ross Bjork was also asked by Dom Taberry about Ryan Day, and he repeated those same things, only this time he added, I think that people lose sight sometimes that this is Coach Day's first head coaching job.
You're always tweaking things. And I think the thing that people, maybe lose sight of a little bit is, this is Coach Day's first head coaching job, right? And he stepped into it.
Now, I agree with everything Ross said, right? Up until that point. Like, Ryan Day himself doesn't consider freshmen who play the whole year freshmen anymore, like at this time of the year. Ryan Day's been the head football coach for 6 years at Ohio State. The tops of the tops. This is now an experienced head coach. Like, there are coaches who have 3 separate head coaching jobs in a 6-year time span. This is his 6th year. Like, I will go with a lot. I'm a pretty logical guy, but to try to use that as any kind of excuse or justification, or he should be given more time because of inexperience, or like, none of that flies when you are now 6 full years into your career as a head coach. Like, that's more than half a decade. Sorry, that's not flying. Anyway, Bill Belichick in his presser today said, I always wanted to be a coach in college football, but it never really worked out. I did some good years in the NFL and that went okay, but this is really kind of a dream come true.
Luke DeCock from the Raleigh News and Observer. Just curious, there were reports that you had prepared a document or organizational Bible. Were those accurate? I reserve a follow-up if the answer is.
Yeah, don't believe everything you read in the papers, all right? I have no idea where that came from. I don't have a 400-page document. And to think I would just go out and hand it, come on, really.
Come true. And I did not know that his dad used to coach there. If you guys have ever seen the old NFL films of the young Bill Belichick, like on the sidelines with his dad, and there's several shots of it, just chubby little shy Bill Belichick. It's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. But I didn't know his dad was a coach at UNC, and he actually pulled out like an old sweatshirt or jersey of his dad's, and that was way cooler than what the athletic director did, which was put on a suit jacket that had the sleeves cut off like Belichick's hooded sweatshirt. It was a really corny joke. I don't know that it hit too well with Bill, but that's Bill. Who knows? Just want to remind you guys, if you haven't yet, please like the video for me. I'd really appreciate that, as well as subscribe. I know some of you aren't subscribed, 51% to be exact of the returning viewers not subscribed to the show. If you could subscribe, it would help me out a great deal. So thank you so much. We have got the Heisman Trophy presentation coming up. It is almost a certainty that Travis Hunter from Colorado is going to win. And normally at this point in the year, I feel like most of the public is kind of walking lockstep behind one candidate. Oftentimes I don't agree. I find myself a lot of times being out on an island with the Heisman Trophy. But this year, it feels to me like the guy who's going to win, which is Travis Hunter, doesn't feel like the public is behind him. I feel like most of the public is behind Ashton Genty. I'm not quite sure why that is. It might be because he's at Boise State, a small school, a story like that, a non-quarterback. But I'll be honest, I have a hang up voting for a G5 guy if I had a vote. Like, I just don't feel like his season's been great. And if there's an exception, I would want it to be him. I just have a hard time with it, man. The competition is just nowhere near what it is in the other conferences. And I do think that there is the potential that he could be dynamic anywhere he went. It wouldn't be over 2,000 yards. I just don't buy it. So I got a hard time with that. I'm not going to say I would totally wipe him off my board. But when we look at the other candidates, when we look at Cam Ward, who's had a really, really good season at Miami, let him do a 10-win season, kind of took college football by storm for a large section of the season there and was the front runner at one time. I don't know that he did anything to lose that front runner status, but to me, he was never a front runner. Like I didn't have him up there. I think he's really, really good. He just doesn't feel like a Heisman winning trophy quarterback to me. Neither is Dylan Gabriel. He was running number one for, for a spell there until they went out to Wisconsin, and he had a really lousy game at Wisconsin, but they won the game, gritted through it. But again, never felt like a Heisman winner to me. And to me, the only one that feels worthy, the only one that I feel had a special year, did something super special, was Travis Hunter. That's it. And you guys know I'm not a Colorado guy. But part of me feels like the disdain for Colorado is being maybe indirectly kind of thrown Travis Hunter's way. Yes, there's been two-way players before. Chris Gamble was an excellent two-way player. We didn't see him win the Heisman Trophy. And Travis Hunter is going to win it, doing a similar thing. But I think he's just an exceptional receiver. He was a number one guy coming out of high school, flashed amazing skills, and he's shown that he's got him at Colorado. I just think he's the real deal, man. I really think he's the real deal. And to me, I'd have to give him the nod. But it seems to me like most of you guys don't agree. So let me know. Who do you want for Heisman? Who should win it? But I'll tell you this, and this is fantastic. Everybody loves it when Las Vegas loses money. These guys, they knew how popular Travis Hunter was coming into the season. So they gave really good odds to bet Travis Hunter. He was low down the board. Plus 3,500 and such when the season first started. And because he's so popular, people were betting it like crazy. It made up like 17% of the total bets. And as we've moved on throughout the season, obviously the odds have dropped lower and lower, but more and more people have bet on him. Now it's up to 31% of the handle bet on Travis Hunter, and he's going to win. Now, if he doesn't win by chance, and it is Genty, there are more people that bet on Genty than even Travis Hunter. So their number one and number two have been the majority of the year, and they are just screwed. Like, they're going to lose so much money on this. It is going to be hilarious. So yesterday I was watching Zach and Chris, and they brought out this bracket, and it's this proposed bracket for a 16-team playoff. And they both really liked it, and I wanted to go over it because I hate it. So I want to offer the counterpoint to this thing because that's what I do. So what you've got here is a 16-team playoff, right? 16 teams, and it incorporates the conference championships. So you got your four conferences, the SEC on the top left, across from them, the Big Ten. Then down on the left, you got the Big 12 and the ACC across from them. And you've essentially got a little mini playoff in each conference to get to the next round, to make it to the Final Four. So if Alabama and Texas play, Alabama wins, they play, let's say, Tennessee. Now, Texas and Tennessee play, and the winner of that game makes it to the Final Four. Same all the way. So in the end, you have your Final Four made up of your conference champions of the four conferences. So now if you got a team that's lost 3, maybe even 4 games in their conference, they still got a shot. They would in a 16-team playoff anyway. When we look at Alabama losing 3 games, they were the first team out. In a 16-team playoff, they would make it anyway. So I don't really see any benefit to this other than it makes the conference championship cleaner. And like I've said before, like, the conference championship is secondary to me. If you can incorporate it in a way that makes sense, cool. But to me, I don't like this, and I'll get to that in a second. Of course, we know this will never happen because the Big Ten and the SEC hold all the power. And right now, they both want 4 teams apiece in the 12-team playoff. And this is only giving them 4 teams apiece in a 16-team playoff. They've already threatened to take their ball and go home. This right here, 100%, they would go make their little mini NFL with 40 total teams, 20 on each side, and the ACC and the Big 12 are out forever. And that's not even factoring in Notre Dame, who has a seat at the table. You got the 10 conference commissioners and the athletic director of Notre Dame. That's the committee. They have an equal voice in all of this. They should just join a conference. They're annoying. They screw everything up, and I hate them being able to have concessions. Like, it's the most annoying thing ever. I don't know how it got this way, that these guys are allowed to have an equal voice, but they do. But every article you read, the commissioners of the 10 conferences and the athletic director of Notre Dame is what it is. But if you look at the first round of the playoffs right now, what we've got are intra-conference matchups, Tennessee and Ohio State, SMU and Penn State. Like, that's what I want in the first round of the playoffs. I want as many intra-conference games as we can get. In this scenario, we're not getting intra-conference games until we get to the Final Four. So it's less of those. I want more of those. Unless you can guarantee me the first 3 games of the year, we're going to see those then. Like, all right, I might think about it then. But that's the whole point of this playoff to me that I love about it, is we get to see these matchups that we never see. And if you're waiting until the Final Four for that, you're losing out on a lot of potential opportunities to have those intra-conference matchups. And if we had a 16-team playoff, we would have a ton of intra-conference matchups. The second thing I don't like is we're going to see a lot of rematches. And we know that we're going to see those in the playoffs anyway. But in this scenario, when we're talking about these conference, a 4-team playoff in each conference, we're going to see a ton of rematches. And it almost makes it like, now that first game, if you're a good team and you're matching up with a good team, the top 4 are going to make the playoffs. Like, for a fact, you're playing them again. I think that adds a whole layer of gamesmanship and such that might be cool, might be annoying. I don't know. Either way, I don't need to see it. Like, I already saw Tennessee and Georgia. I don't need to see it again. But that's not my biggest problem. My biggest problem is something Chris brought up. And you've got the ACC and the Big 12 on equal footing with the Big 10 and the SEC. The Big 12 is getting a team in the Final Four guaranteed every single year. How often do you think that Big 12 team can win the national championship? Obviously, like 1 out of 10, we all know that, if that. And what about the team that gets to play them in the Final Four? If you're the team that gets the draw to play the Big 12 team in the Final Four, you waltzed your way in. Meanwhile, Clemson and Ohio State are playing on this side, a drag-out game to make it to the championship game, and Georgia on the other side just walked over BYU. It also gives teams like Clemson, who's usually head and shoulders above the pack in the ACC, a walk-through first 2 games. Now, Chris and I have had this discussion on the show before, and his argument is sound, and he says, well, let's take the NFL, for instance, and look at the divisions. The AFC South sucks. The winner of that division is going to make it to the playoffs. And he's absolutely right. But here's where he misses me with that analogy. It doesn't work for me, because the AFC South or any other division in the NFL, yes, it may be down for 2 or 3 years, but they're cyclical. They're going to pop back up. It doesn't work like that forever. There's never going to be a time where the SEC and the Big 10 drop below the Big 12, and the Big 12 has a 3-year span where they pop up. That's never going to happen. So there's never going to be proper equity or balance in this, because the Big 10 and the SEC are getting the same amount of teams and guaranteed the same amount of teams in the Final Four as the Big 12 and the ACC. At least the ACC can pop up and win a national championship every now and again. The Big 12 will never. And the fact that they're being guaranteed without Texas and Oklahoma, with that cluster of teams, guys, like 3 years ago, let's just say 5 years ago, the cluster of teams that is in the Big 12 right now, 5 years ago was the Conference USA. Like, that's what that is. While I love the football out there, I really do. I'm not trying to knock them, but them getting equal footing with the SEC and the Big 10, absolute no-go for me. Other than that, it looks fun. Additionally, with that NFL thing, we're talking about schools in the Big 12 that have about, 15 to 20% of the football budget that the schools in the Big Ten and the SEC have. It just doesn't work. It's not the same thing. The NFL has the same draft picks. They all have the same draft picks. That would be like saying BYU has the same recruiting prowess as Georgia. It's not the same at all. They're playing different sports in a lot of ways. So, yeah, don't like it because of that reason. So yesterday I did this little 8-minute video on an awesome story. That's Clark. And Clark is a little Buckeye fan, and he has been diagnosed with a very rare disorder. And I encourage you to watch that video. Really cool story. There is a Tennessee fan who has a little charity and has reached out and is going to make a really special weekend for him, the weekend of the game. And that's awesome. I just wanted to update that they are now at $17,000 raised because of that. And that's going to go towards his treatment, for Clark's treatment, and his parents, Japheth and Chloe, incredibly appreciative of that. And our man, Bo Camaro, is the Tennessee fan who has the foundation that is helping out. Also, I wanted to share that the foundation has jumped in here, and they're going to make sure that student athletes get to go visit Clark. So really cool story of two fan bases coming together. Michigan was included, Indiana, all donating money. And that's really awesome. So I bought this for my nephew. Would you believe this? My nephew Roman, in the 8th grade, his favorite former Buckeye is Terrell Pryor, a guy he's never seen play, but on YouTube highlights. And I got this for him for Christmas. I'm sending this to him. So I found this, and I absolutely love it because in the background, I was at this game, Terrell Pryor's first game against Youngstown State. So I was at that game, but if you look in the background, Bowser Bombs is back there. I mean, it's perfect. So I get to give him this and tell him the story about Joe Bowserman, baby. What could be better, right? Our man Dabo, Dabo is heading to the portal. He is hosting a Transfer Edge from Purdue, heading to the portal now. And, he did say that he has had guys visit. I think he said he had 2 guys they were looking at, but, they got to want you too. That's what he said last cycle. So it's not like he said he will never do it, but it looks like he's now being forced to do it. Of course, everybody's going to be forced to, especially when you're bringing in classes of 16 guys like he just did. The math doesn't square there, buddy. Pretty funny little meme I saw here. We've all seen this meme, and this one is just all Buckeye fans. Buckeye fans fighting and Buckeye fans just watching, which I loved. Jimmy says, we're fortunate to have a great guy like Hartline for a lot of reasons. That being said, having those kids has gotten us no natty. Whiskey Sucks says, I remember my Vols winning in Columbus. You guys had a great team that time. Out of gas, you'll find yourselves with your silly coach, which is interesting because Tennessee has never come to Columbus. I'm not quite so sure what Whiskey Sucks is remembering there. DG says, oh my gosh, a battle of the 2 most obnoxious fan bases in all of college football. That one makes me laugh, and it's kind of true. And Wesley says, do you make fun of blind people too? I have no idea what that's in reference to. David Johnson says, Justin Fry is Urban's son-in-law. He must be fired. If Ryan Day won't do it, show them both the door. You win championships with your offensive and defensive line. Skilled players are nothing without the line. That's a fact, and that is a fact. But what's not is Justin Fry being Urban's son-in-law. That was Corey Dennis. He has since left and had 3 jobs since he left. So anyway, guys, appreciate you so much. Have a great weekend. Go Army, beat Navy. Please like the video on your way out. Talk to you soon. Juckonbucks out. I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championship. Something stupid is coming out of his mouth. I don't know. Maybe it's just my age. He needs his vote pulled immediately. And of course, yes, a season like this has to have a name. Let's talk about something good about Justin Fry. What are you doing? Season of dreams. Ohio State, my guys, are either the best or the second best program in the history of college football. This guy is a bonehead. They love him. I question your judgment as an adult. I really do. I was a total hater. I know that for a fact, and I just don't get it. Get us back our sleeves and say, bring me that. That's the one I want.